Good afternoon, America, and all of you who may be listening throughout this expanse called Earth. Big place, big place. It is October 11, 2021, and the new WCEG Network welcomes you. This program is Issues and Answers, and I am your host, Norman A. Carter Jr. On your computer or smartphone, you can view or hear us by typing in WCEG TALKRADO.com. In your browser, hit enter, and on the next screen, click the live stream tab. You'll find us right there. On your smart TV, and it works because I've tried it on mine, just click the YouTube icon and search for WCEG Network. That'll get you there. And for those of you who don't know, WCEG stands for Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. Our programming goal is to leave you a bit more informed and a bit more empowered than you were before you tuned in. Our motto, we speak life into the community, especially on this program. You may like us on Facebook, please do, please, and view us live on Facebook right now. Follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. Now, the topics and opinions on Issues and Answers this program are those of me, Norman A. Carter Jr., and my guest, and not the WCEG Network, so you can leave my boss alone. This is my show, and these are my words and the words of my guest. Welcome, 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 folks. It's going to be an informative and exciting program. You know, this morning, my day began listening to a song. I found it today. I was looking for something else called Remember Me by Chris Mann. Look it up on YouTube. Remember Me by Chris Mann. If you can watch that without getting a tear or two in your eyes, you're a better person than I am. Last Sunday, I had the privilege, the honor of watching 60 Minutes last weekend. And for you old folks like moi, you remember Tony Bennett, fantastic singer. And 60 Minutes had a 15 or 20-minute portion of the show dedicated to him. He's going through Alzheimer's. And if you've never seen it before, look it up on YouTube. You can just put Tony Bennett 60 Minutes on YouTube. And please watch that video. It makes it so real. And fortunately today, we have a guest. Her name is Mrs. Shonda Cross-Bell. She's right there with me on the screen right now. She's an Albany, Georgia native. And she's the oldest child in her family. She's married to Mr. Ronald Bell, who I'm sure is sticking out his chest right now after 24 years. They share one daughter. Her name is Sharon Bell. And they have a little furry pet named Mocha. She actually works full-time as a special education teacher and recently retired from her second job as a hairstylist after 28 years. We'll get into why she retired in a minute. And she serves as the Alzheimer ambassador for the Alzheimer's Association. And as an active member, she's a deaconess in her church. However, and that's what brings us here today together, her most cherished role right now is to serve as the caregiver for both her mother and her father. And before I get a comment from her, and I'm going to pose some questions to her, but I just want to pass this on to everyone, because Alzheimer's This is from the Alzheimer's and Dementia Association, the National Association. And it says, rich or poor, or somewhere in between, you can die prematurely just because of dementia. Alzheimer's disease, along with many other causes of progressive dementia, cross-cultural and socioeconomic divides. Today, there are no cures or effective long-term treatments for almost all forms of dementia. And we're finding out that probably the best treatment for dementia, Alzheimer's, is TLC. And Mrs. Shonda Bell, we welcome you to Issues and Answers as we enlighten the public about not only what Alzheimer's and dementia is, but what goes into being a caregiver for a member of your family or a friend who's going through this really devastating disease. Welcome to our program.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. It's a pleasure to be here today.
I'm so glad to have you. You've been a special education teacher for how many years now?
This year will be my 20th year as
Wow.
a special education teacher.
Wow, you could fool all of us. Now you serve as an Alzheimer's ambassador. What does that, for the Alzheimer's Association, what does that entail, and what do you do?
Well, part of my responsibilities as an Alzheimer's ambassador for the Alzheimer's Association is to play go-between between speaking with people like Congressman Bishop about bills that are important to people living with Alzheimer's and their families. You know, I advocate on behalf of the things that's important for us as caregivers and for the people living with dementia, and try to get them to sign on to those bills and make things better for us.
Fantastic.
Congressman Bishop has been great with doing that for us.
And what particular area does he represent?
This District 2. I'm an Alzheimer's ambassador for District 2.
Okay, and that's here in Georgia.
Yes.
Georgia.
Here in Georgia.
Okay, thank you very much. One thing I'd like to bring out is, and perhaps you've seen this in your experience, because I remember as a youngster coming up, and even into recently, senility, as it was called, people talked about it, but they kind of laughed at it. Some people were ashamed of it. Yeah. I know I went through that in my own family with my aunt, and it was surprising that my father, and I look at it as him not being, just felt inadequate. And I think that happens with a lot of people, just didn't know how to deal with it.
Right.
With his sister. And as a young man, I found out that the best way to deal to it was just go ahead and talk to her, keep her company. It means so much. And I see that now, because I'm dealing with it in my own family, my mother-in-law, where the importance of engagement with family and friends is so important. Have you seen that, also experienced that also?
Yes, it's been very important to me to make sure that people know that although my mom has this disease, that she is still who she has always been. You know, she just has been affected by this disease, but I want people to treat her with the utmost respect, and just realize she is still a person. She's not invisible. She's still a person.
Yeah, and I think, and I've experienced this, and perhaps you are too, those moments of what I call moments of lucidity, where it seems like they're right the same person that they were before. And for however long it lasts, it's really heartening when that happens.
Yes, a lot of times, first thing in the morning, that's what happens with her. I go in and I wake her up and she looks at me and she smiles and we say some things to each other.
Mhm.
She responds
Mhm.
in a very lucid way. And I'm like, yeah, there she is. There she
What
is.
one of the things that I have experienced recently, and that this came from medical professionals, but also seen it, is that sometimes, many times, the morning is the best time
Mhm.
for people going through this. And it's my unprofessional opinion is that as the day goes on, they become tired and they don't have a way of expressing
Right.
uh, that tiredness or fatigue. And
Right.
I talk about talking to a relative the other day about circle of life. If you look at
Mhm.
it that way, it brings an understanding, because just as little babies may have difficulty expressing themselves in certain ways,
Mhm.
someone going through Alzheimer's or dementia goes through the same things.
Right.
And you have to understand that as you're going through it.
Mhm. That's true.
So what type of support do you have? Uh, uh, because I know this is a daunting task.
Yeah. Number one support I have is my husband and daughter here in the
Mm-hmm.
home with me.
Mm-hmm.
We have a caregiver who comes in Monday through Friday so that I'm able to continue to work, because
Okay.
without her, I would not be able to work.
Correct.
And, we have support from family and friends who's step in and allow me to have a little break, to run to the store, go get my hair done or things like that.
I think you bring up a good point, and it's something that I've been trying to stress, and this is very important. And I really hope that everyone is listening to this, and you bring up an important point about taking a break.
Mhm.
How important that is, not only for you, but also in carrying out your responsibilities to your loved ones.
Right. That's very important. As a caregiver, you must take a break. At first, and I must admit that I'm just getting to the point where I was starting to do that, because I just would not relinquish much of her care over to other people, because I just
Mhm.
felt like I could do it best.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I was beginning to have some problems physically, and everybody kept telling me, you got to take care of yourself, you got to take some time for yourself. And so I did start to do that. And it's, with COVID, it's been very difficult to allow other people to come in and help with her, but I realized that I had to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a large number of people, but like I said, we had the caregiver, and we had one of her good friends who would come, um, and her sisters would come, and allow me just to have that time, because you got to have that time to step away from it for a moment, because once you are involved in the life of a person living with Alzheimer's and dementia, it's all about them.
Correct.
It's all about them.
Yes.
And you can get
Yeah.
really caught up in that.
I know. And for those of you who think you are immune, let me pass on some medical information that I found out recently. And that as we age, all of us, as we age, our brain begins to shrink. It loses mass. I remember back in the days when we used to be hanging out and having a few cluckers, and people would say, "Yeah, I'm gonna kill a few brain cells," but um, it happens as we age. There's shrinkage in all of our brains, and we're all susceptible to this. And I just want to read out a couple of facts, and I'll intersperse these facts with our conversation. But this is from the National Alzheimer's and Dementia Association. Alzheimer's disease is a degenerative brain disease and the most common form of dementia. Dementia is not a specific disease. It's an overall term that describes a group of symptoms. Now, memory loss that disrupts daily life may be a symptom of Alzheimer's or other dementia. Alzheimer's is a brain disease that causes a slow decline in memory, thinking, and reasoning skills. And there are 10 warning signs and symptoms. And if you notice any of them, you need to seek medical attention. I'm going to run through these real quickly. Memory loss that disrupts daily life. Challenges in planning or solving problems. Difficulty completing familiar tasks. I mean, easy stuff. Getting up a grocery list, rules of their favorite game, things like that. Confusion with time or place. My goodness.
Yeah.
That one is a biggie. That's a biggie. Trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. New problems with words in speaking or writing. Misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps. Just like, you say, why did I walk in that room? We all had that a little bit, but when you get to the point where you're just there standing and can't figure out why you're there, where you are, that's a problem. Decreased or poor judgment, withdrawal from work or social activities, seen that, and changes in mood and personality. These are all things that if you see in yourself or in your relative, you need to run to a physician. And you would go to your primary care physician, I would assume,
Right.
and they might refer you to a psychologist or psychiatrist, and they perform a series of tests. Am I correct?
Right. A neurologist.
A neurologist, yes. They perform a series of tests. It takes about an hour and a half to go through, depending on how they're set up. Right. But those tests make a determination. And it's not an intelligence test, folks. So don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted.
No.
But this is to really test to see how your mind is working.
Right.
And if there is a problem. And then there are other tests that can get a little bit more intrusive. There's scans and whatnot, brain scans that they'll do somewhere down the road if that's necessary. But did you go through those things with your parents?
I did. Yes, the first thing was the primary physician. She did a very long assessment, like you said, where she was drawing clocks and things like that. She had to give her several words, and she tried to, go on with the assessment, then come back and repeat those words. And it was kind of scared me because it was hard for me, but
yeah.
But those were the first initial things that they did. And then the neurologist ordered the brain scan, and he was the one who determined her brain had shrunk, she had shrinkage in her brain, and that along with the assessment the primary care physician did and the things that I shared with him that she was doing, that she was suffering from dementia.
And while we're at it, I'd like to mention the Alzheimer's Association has a helpline that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That is 1-800-272-3900. Again, that's 1-800-272-3900. They're open 24/7. And in my experience, they're there. And they're very informative. And no matter what part of the country you're in, they can refer you to an Alzheimer's association in your city or in your community that you can refer to and speak to people there. And I found them to be very, very patient people. I don't know whether you had the experience calling them, but they're very, very patient. And they're as thorough as the information that you give them can be. So That's very important. And one of the things that for those of you who think that, yeah, well, I'm 40 and I'm good, let me tell you something. There's something called early onset Alzheimer's disease.
Mm-hmm.
Early onset. The symptoms are just about the same as I mentioned before, but these symptoms can develop in your 30s and 40s. But for most people, they occur in their 50s or their 60s. So be mindful that it can happen to you at a young age or begin happening to you. These signs can evidence themselves, and you need to watch out for that in your family members. And as I said before, also yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I know today, if you go to a primary care physician, some of the questions that they ask you are indicators that you may be going through something. There may be only one or two questions, but when you fill out that, I think it's a HIPAA form or whatever, one of those forms you fill out, that's one of the things that they want to know about whether you've had memory problems or if you're falling and losing balance and things like that. Those are indicators. I guess you had a career also doing hair. It looks like you did a great job on yourself today. It looks like. But that was your second career. Now, when you had to give that up after 28 years, was that in part due to your caring for your parents?
Yes, it was, because I was doing that like in the afternoons after I would leave school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it just became too much, because when I would leave the salon, it would be like 8 o'clock at night, and I would have to go sometimes and check on them before I even went home, and I'd be driving half blind trying to see, because I was so tired, but it was just too much.
I understand, and thankfully you have, even now, having given that up, you're still working full time, but you have family support, and
Right.
you have people coming in and assisting you. And I know you talked about a caregiver. I'd like our audience to know that if you contact your Alzheimer's Association, or if someone has gone to a medical facility and been diagnosed with that, if you speak to social workers in that hospital, they can refer you to caregivers and agencies that may be to help you out, regardless of your income. Don't let your income be oh my gosh, I can't afford this.
Right.
Lose your pride. Ask the question, because there are programs out here for you. And this is not something that you can tackle alone.
No, definitely not.
Even if it's just one parent, it's not something that you can tackle alone. So you need to reach out for help, and it's better for you, and it's going to be better for your loved one. And I say loved one for sure, because without love, it ain't happening. Trust me.
Right.
It ain't happening. I was just this weekend, I read that this group in Zurich has come up with something they call gantenerumab antibody. Gantenerumab. You'll probably hear about that on TV sometime soon. But it's supposed to be a breakthrough therapy that they made an application to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for the treatment of Alzheimer's disease.
Okay.
This is brand new. This was just hot off the press last Friday or Saturday. But, and this is the big but, it says towards the end of the article that the pursuit of an Alzheimer's remedy, which would inevitably reap drug makers billions of dollars, has been marked by more than 100 failures. There hasn't been a lot of success. So, although researchers still hope to tame a condition that affects nearly 6 million Americans, those 6 million are not taken into account the families. There's 6 million families. So multiply that by 2 or 3, because if you're involved in this, believe me, you're consumed by it. So 6 million Americans have that, and more than 40 million people worldwide, and it is growing. It's not diminishing.
Right.
And one of the reasons that it's growing is we hear all of this about how medical breakthroughs have allowed, dietary breakthroughs have allowed us to live longer lives. I know when I was a kid, when you got to be 50 years old, you were ancient. And now you're going into your second life. But our society is becoming older, and things that may have been rare when we were younger, or relatively rare, are now more prevalent. And I have it somewhere that the like worldwide, like death from Alzheimer's and dementia is something like number 3 under cancer and heart disease.
Right.
It's very, very high.
Yeah.
Very high. So we're having this program, and I think that the WCEG Network is having a few more programs this week about this disease. And it's just so important that everyone pay attention. And I see a note here that says, through this free service, specialists and master's level clinicians offer confidential support and information to people living with dementia, caregivers, families, and the public. So as I said before, help is out there. All you have to do is ask for it. You can, I'm sure if you have a primary care physician, that primary care physician can direct you to the proper venue. If not, contact your local hospital. Or, as we mentioned before, and I'll mention it again, is contact the Alzheimer's Association helpline, 24/7, 365, 1-800-272-3900. That's 1-800-272-3900. So I don't want to over talk you, this voice of experience. Mrs. Bell, what advice would you give to someone who's dealing with a relative that's going through this? Or do you have any advice?
Yeah. The main thing for me with dealing with my mom has been trying to establish a routine with her. Since we have established a routine, especially now that she's in the home with me, because I was doing this like running across town, trying to do, take care of her in the house with my dad. Establishing a routine has been great. That has been the best part for us in making this adjustment with her in the home. And we're just in our groove now, with our mornings and with the evenings, and she knows what to expect. She in the evening time, I try to feed her and give her evening meds from like between 6 and 7. And so now she just automatically starts winding down. There's no more of this, when she starts to sundown and getting into things and stuff like that, her body is just now starting to just come down automatically most of the time before I even give her meds. I was
really taken aback when you said that, because my wife, who is actually caring for her mother right now, one of the things that she has done is she creates a list every day, and she posts it where her mother can see it. And what that list does is tells her these are the activities with the time on it every day. And it so much helps.
Yeah.
It helps that person, even if they're going to, at some point, forget some of this, that at the beginning of the day, when they're most alert, this gives them, and actually, it just gives them an idea of what's going to be going on. And I found out that at some point, they even look for that. And if you don't post it or you don't have it out there or you don't have your little notes, it's like, okay, where is it? So as devastating as this disease is, there's a part of them for a good part of their life that is lucid, that can react, that understands their situation, even though they may not be able to voice it to you.
Right.
And that's so much important. And we got more info coming up here from Dr. Wanzo, who is our WCEG psychologist. She has a program she features on Wednesdays called Mind Matters, and she has a medication that's called aducanumab, ADUCANUMAB. And it's a monoclonal antibody that reduces buildup of plaques in the brain. And the annual cost of infusions is ding, 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 $56,000. Wow. But I am sure that those of you who have medical insurance, that covers a lot of it. That's the important of medical insurance, Medicare, Medicaid. There's help. So I don't want that number to get people to say, oh no, I can't afford it, so I'm just going to, no. As I said before, talk to somebody, talk to a professional, or call the 1-800 number that we have been giving you, and we will put that out a little bit later. And I guess we talk about it takes a village to raise a child. But as I go back to my circle of life, it looks like you have a little village helping you to deal with this.
In the beginning, they call it build your care team.
Okay.
That's my care team.
Well,
that's very important.
Well, that's good. And I think that should be, that's important for our listeners and viewers. And how did you go about that? Was that difficult? Did you have to go through like a little education process, a training process?
When I first found out about her diagnosis, I didn't know much about Alzheimer's except, and dementia, except that people, they have memory issues. And so that was basically all I knew. And so I just, like most things that I do, I just go in overdrive. I went in overdrive. I was like, I'm going to this workshop. I'm signing up for that workshop. I'm in here on the internet. I'm just researching, finding, all the information that I can to help me.
So the resources are there for people who want to find them.
Right.
And once again, I have to say that the greatest ingredient in all of this is love. It's just so important that, especially as I said before, and I don't want to be too repetitive, but we are becoming a much older society. And this is something where I've read something where 1 in 5 people will be touched by this in some sort of way. 1 in 5. America, are you listening? Georgia, are you listening? You can't ignore this. You can't say, well, I don't want to deal with it and it'll go away. It doesn't. And it is so important and so vital. And Ms. Bell, I just thank you for coming on the program. And for me, maybe you can say it better, thank your family, your team, because without your team, this whole thing would just fall apart.
It would definitely.
It would fall apart. Which goes into something I'd also like to say is that I just mentioned this before, but about everybody reaching out. Don't try to do this by yourself. As you can see, we have a working mother and wife who's dealing with two relatives affected by these diseases. And she has a team. She has reached out. And there was things that she didn't know, as most of us don't know, but the information is out there. The help is out there. Once again, the Alzheimer's Association is available 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Their helpline number is 1-800-272-3900. Mrs. Bell, I just want to thank you. I love to keep you on for another hour, but I know that you have things to do, and people who are waiting for you. So thank you so much for coming on to Issues and Answers today. And I hope somewhere down the road that we can get together and talk a little bit about your other occupation, which is teaching special education children, because that is one of my favorite topics that I really would like to get into.
Okay.
For my just switching bases here before we close out the program, everybody, I'd just like to remind everybody, and I'm going to do what the media and what the politicians are doing and how they're telling you. It's election time. You barely heard it. It's election time. And people just aren't talking about it and enough. We had the big election in November, the presidential election, and that was supposed to change lives. We were going to get rid of the bad stuff and new stuff was going to happen. These elections and what we call off-year elections are probably more important than the national election, because a lot of these elections you are electing your local representatives, your mayors, your council people, some senators, and it's so important. There are issues on the ballots, and elections are so important. They're just so important. So as I said, the early voting is going on. I know here in Fulton and South Fulton County in metropolitan Atlanta, early voting is going on. And I know throughout the country and other places, elections are going on. And one thing that I have to talk about is, and I hope that this will be the last time that we have to talk about this, because at least for the past 10 years and almost every year since I've been living in Georgia, Fulton County, Georgia has had a problem with those elections. Every election, Fulton County, Georgia just cannot get it right. And obviously, in my mind, the people of Fulton County are stuck with electing incompetent people. Incompetence is the only way that this can continue to happen over and over. So the people of Fulton County, Georgia, you're responsible for what you're getting in Fulton County. And it's because you look at the same people the same way all the time. And you've got to stop that. You've got to rethink. You've got to think that, you know what, you've been doing it a certain way for a certain number of years, and you have not gotten it right. There are a few things more important to of value in this country as protection of our right to vote. Our right to vote. Just today, let me read this because this is hot off the press from WSB TV here in Georgia, and I'll read it fast. The Fulton County Elections Director has fired 2 employees who were accused of shredding paper voter registration applications. Crazy. Richard Barron said that 300 applications related to municipal elections were shredded in the last 2 weeks. State law requires elections officials to preserve election documents related to primary or general elections for 24 months after the election. Fulton County Commission Chairman Rob Pitts immediately reported the case to the Office of Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis for investigation. Barron has also referred the actions of the employees to the Secretary of State's office. Lock them up. Just lock them up. Nothing is more precious. I mean, we just had a president of the United States that tried to steal an election, tried his heart out, tried his best, intimidated the governor of Georgia, who was too emasculated to talk about it. And all the Republicans are too emasculated to talk about it. But you know what? You've got to stop taking it, folks. You talk about how people fought and died and got hung for trying to exercise their right to vote, and yet you allow your neighbors, your friends, some of you people in your family to do things like shred registration ballots and get away with it, and you don't raise a whimper. You don't raise a hand to say enough is enough. And I don't know, Commissioner Pitts, if you hear this program, perhaps you want to come on WCEG and explain to us why continually, every single election, there's a problem in Fulton County, every election, and you're there at the top. So ladies and gentlemen, that's my rant for the day. Again, I want to thank my guest, Mrs. Shonda Cross-Bell, for informing us and enlightening us about dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia. Thank you for the work that you're doing as an ambassador and as a loving daughter. I thank you. Maybe they can't thank you, but I thank you. Hopefully my daughter will do the same for me. So we want to thank you all for joining us here on WCEG. Let me see if we have any more messages before we close out. No, we'd already talked about that. And the another thing I want to mention, and I've had a program about this before I close out, is we're sort of letting police departments and police accountability off the hook a little bit here. And you know that's one of my big campaigns that I'm about. As a former police officer who has seen it, who has blown the whistle on corruption and abuse, and some of it affected even Atlanta. You got to start paying attention. And I hope that one of the things that I wrote about in my book, and this goes with community responsibility, folks, you've got to start having meetings with your police department before you start rioting in the streets. Meet with your police commanders, have them set up meetings so that you can deal with the issues of bad cops in your neighborhood. It just needs to be done. You have Mayor Kasim Reed, who says he's promising you 700 police officers once he gets in the office, 700 new. I'd like to know where he's going to get those 700 from. But anyway, I'll let you question that and those things as you question all the candidates as we come to election time. We're in the midst of election time right now. And Mrs. Bell, do you have any other points to make before we sign off about the Alzheimer's Association, your duties, or just the disease in general?
I just want people to always just give the person living with Alzheimer's and dementia the utmost respect. They're, like I said before, they're not invisible. They are still there in some way, and they just deserve all our love, all our respect, all our care. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, I thank you for that. What's that old saying there? But for the grace of God go I. Um,
Right.
we none of us have any idea of how this is going to wind up for any of us. So it's a good idea for us to show our children,
Mm-hmm.
those our friends, how we would like to be treated if we are so unfortunate as to come with this disease or any one of a number of other, not just Alzheimer's and dementia, but there's so many other debilitating diseases
Yeah.
that will force you to be dependent on other people,
Mm-hmm.
especially people in your family.
Yes.
I had experience. I was a caregiver for several months for a terminal cancer patient, and it's it's draining mentally, physically.
Mm-hmm.
Although I will say that when you're going through it, you don't notice it. It's
Right.
one of those things because you're resolved that this is what I have to do, and so you
Mm-hmm.
go do it. And it
Mm-hmm.
isn't until like you look back on it and you go, "Wow, how did I manage that? How did I manage that?" But I'm telling you, the you can do it. But it all starts, folks, with getting establishing a network, establishing your network of information, your network of caregivers, and people who are going to be helping you, your own personal support system. You have to go out and establish that. You can't be a hermit. You can't be, okay, I'm going to do this alone. And mom and dad, we're going to make it just the three of us or just the two of us. We're going to do it and we're going to get it done. No, it doesn't work that way. And, the statistics are not good for caregivers who try to do it all on their own. And I'll go through these signs once again of that you need to look out for. Memory loss that disrupts daily life, challenges in planning or solving problems, difficulty completing familiar tasks. Uh, Sometimes they may have trouble driving to a familiar location, organizing a grocery list, or remembering the rules of a favorite game, like bid whist, tonk, or something like that, pinochle. Confusion with time or place. That is, woo, I've seen that up close and personal, and that is, it's it's soul shaking when you see that. Trouble understanding visual and spatial relationships, new problems with words in speaking or writing, which can also be the sign of a stroke. So that's a big one that you need to look at. Decreased or poor judgment. Individuals may experience changes in judgment or decision making. For example, they may use poor judgment when dealing with money. I've seen this in my family where a scam artist called up and um, they were duped so easily into giving away several $100s and then became angry about it, not about the information, but about us for saying, you know what, but you got scammed. So um, those type of things. And there are people who prey on people. Uh, and that's there's a special part of Hades for people like that.
Yes.
Withdrawal from work or social activities. I've seen that. And changes in mood or personality. Uh, Individuals living with Alzheimer's, and I've seen this, may experience mood or personality changes. They can become confused, suspicious of everybody, easily depressed, fearful, or anxious. They may be easily upset at home. Let me say this again. They may be easily upset at home with friends or when out of their comfort zone. And I had let me just jump into this and explain how this happens. A few weeks ago, I took my mother-in-law and my wife, we went to lunch, had a great lunch, took pictures at lunch. We had a great time, just a great time. And I was staying in Louisville. We went to a hotel. And you know what happens to us folks when we have a good meal? We sit down and we take a little snooze.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife and her mother sat on the sofa and took a little snooze for about a half an hour. And we all woke up. Well, when my mother-in-law woke up, she had no idea where she was.
Right.
Not only, which that was understandable, but we could not convince her that she was in Louisville. She thought she was in Ohio somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then got angry with us when we tried to point out, no, you're here, and this is what we did today, and showed her pictures, because we took pictures.
Mm-hmm.
That was more anger.
Yeah.
And but it's that type of thing. But what we found out also going down the road is that if you can distract them for a while,
Mm-hmm.
not become argumentative,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of leave it for a while and go on to something else, that they'll go on to something else.
Mm-hmm. Distraction is our friend.
Yes. Because as long as you keep at it and you want to argue the point,
mm-hmm.
you are not going to win.
Yeah.
And all you're going to do is increase that agitation.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to stick to that. So I'll close by saying, if you notice one or more of the signs in yourself or another person, it can be difficult to know what to do. It's natural to feel uncertain or nervous about discussing these changes with others. Voicing worries about your own health might make them seem more real. Or you may fear upsetting someone by sharing observations about changes in his or her abilities or behavior. Don't do that. However, these are significant health concerns that should be evaluated by a doctor, not your friend, not over the internet, by a doctor. It's important to take action to figure out what's going on. And again, the 24/7 hotline, it's their 24/7 helpline, is 1-800-272-3900. It's 1-800-272-3900. And dementia and Alzheimer's are not hereditary diseases, my research tells me. I could be wrong, but Mrs. Bell, do you have any information on that? Because I don't believe they're hereditary.
No, most of the things that I have researched or heard in workshops is that it has a lot to do with things like if you're diabetic, if you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, problems like that, you're more susceptible to getting Alzheimer's or dementia.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Good. And I also had an addendum. This is a little more clearer than what I have said before, but Alzheimer's type dementia alone is currently considered to represent more than half of all cases of dementia. That's Alzheimer's type dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And even more shocking, when all forms of dementia are combined, they are globally thought to be the third leading cause of death behind heart disease and stroke in high income countries. That's throughout the rest. That would be United States, Great Britain, India, Europe, Russia, all these big comers. And I like to go out with this, and I said this at the beginning. Rich or poor, or somewhere in between, you can die prematurely just because of dementia. Alzheimer's disease, along with many other causes of progressive dementia, cross-cultural and social, like a cross-cultural and socioeconomic divides. Today, there are no cures, or they're looking for it. They're working hard because they want to make money, or effective long-term treatments for almost all form of dementia. And the one thing that we know that does work is TLC, from you and me. That works. It really does work. So I want to see if I have any more information on Alzheimer's. And I think we covered most of it without boring people with a bunch of numbers and whatnot. Do you have any other statistical information, Mrs. Bell?
Um,
If not, it's okay. I know it's kind of
have
hard.
I wanted to, as a caregiver, let the public know that over 11 million Americans provide unpaid care for people living with Alzheimer's.
Wow.
11 million.
Wow. And that speaks loads. I remember I mentioned that we said anywhere between 6 and 9 million people are affected by this disease, but we have an 11 million people in addition that you have to consider. And I think one of the things that I read is that in spite of these numbers, that they believe that Alzheimer's disease and dementia are underreported. So a lot of people hide it.
Yes, and now that you said it, that really bothers me sometimes, a lot, because there's a stigma. People don't want to say their relative has it, because it's just a negative stigma that they feel goes along with it. And that's why I have been so public about my mom and her condition. We're all on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, because I keep her out there. I want the world to see that she is still the same beautiful person. She just her brain is just sick, but she's still the same beautiful person, and I'm not ashamed of her at all.
It's an illness like any other illness,
right?
And I just received information that's only 1% of Alzheimer's is genetic. Only 1%. So by and large, it's not something that's inherited. There are diseases, rare. I know there's one, I know in my wife's family it seems to be very prevalent in the women, Alzheimer's. But by and large, 1% is a small percentage. So don't think because you don't have it and you haven't had it in your family, folks, that you're going to skate free. Right. As Mrs. Bell pointed out, things like high blood pressure, diabetes, they all figure into this debilitating thing. High blood pressure, I think, especially, which people don't realize, is that one of the side effects of high blood pressure is that untreated or treated poorly, it destroys your blood vessels, and your brain survives on blood. And when it doesn't get enough blood, cells die. Right. Diabetes, same thing, can affect your blood vessels, and untreated can cause a whole bunch of problems with your circulatory system. And again, we already talked about the shrinkage in the brain. We talked about that. It happens to everybody. Well, that shrinkage increases because cells are dying, and when cells are dying, they get flushed through your system and they're gone, and there's no getting them back. Right. So all of us need to take care of ourselves much better. See your doctor on a regular basis. See your primary care doctor. Monitor your blood pressure. Don't drink too much. I laugh, but those type of things are,
there is such a thing as alcoholic dementia.
Correct.
So yeah, definitely.
Correct. So we all have to be careful about that. We all have to be mindful of it. Everybody, I really, really hope that all of you who have listened to this program have gleaned something that you can get out and use right now, to help yourself, to help your family. And we at WCEG thank you so much, so very much for joining us on this informative program on Alzheimer's and dementia. We will see you soon. Take care. Thank you.